When we study World War I, our focus almost universally falls on, trenches, tactical maneuvers, the sheer destructive power of new weapons.
Generals and geography.
Exactly. But our sources today, they cut through all that and point to an entirely unexpected dictator of the war's duration. A force that was, frankly, far more powerful than artillery.
Money.
Money.
It's still one of the greatest historical puzzles. In the summer of 1914, you have leaders across every major nation who were incredibly confident. I mean, they were certain that if a war did bring out, it would be quick.
And they base this on what?
On a core belief. The idea that holding gold, their gold reserves, would act as this decisive financial constraint, a sort of chokehold that would force everybody to the peace table in, a matter of months.
They were absolutely certain the monetary system itself would impose discipline, that finance would prevent a long, drawn-out tragedy.
But it didn't. And that is the central mission of this deep dive for you today. We are going to unpack these spectacular monetary illusions of 1914. And, more importantly, we need to look in the mirror and ask if we, today, are still carrying those same blind spots.
Because it wasn't the guns that dictated the duration.
No, it was the ability to keep funding them.
Okay, let's unpack this then. That pre-war belief system, looking back, it feels almost hubristic. The entire financial establishment was convinced the gold standard would strictly limit any conflict.
It was an article of global faith. I mean, the sources show this wasn't some secret belief. It was openly discussed. The British press stated it unequivocally. Gold will determine the scope and duration of the war.
The logic seems so simple.
It was clean and simple. Once the gold runs out, you can't buy essential inputs, you can't back your currency, and the entire war machine just grinds to a halt, period.
And this confidence, it went beyond just the physical gold, right? The central bankers, they weren't just relying on tradition. They were relying on their own supposed brilliance.
Oh, completely. They convinced themselves that, thanks to what they called modern scientific monetary knowledge, they were immune to the pitfalls of history. They told everyone that high inflation, well, that was basically impossible no matter how big the conflict got.
So they thought they had mastered the financial universe.
They did. They believed they'd built these guardrails and that those guardrails simply could not fail.
That just sounds like the perfect setup for a tragedy. So if that confidence was so absolute, what were the brutal financial realities that shattered it? What happened when this 4-month war prediction met the real world?
The metrics are just horrifying. They predicted a conflict of maybe 4 months, 6 at the absolute most. The reality was 4 years of grinding attrition, and the cost, the spending, soared into the hundreds of billions of dollars.
The scale they couldn't even imagine.
Simply unimaginable to the planners of 1914.
And the financial discipline they promised. The system that was supposed to restrain them.
It just melted away. It evaporated. All that scientific knowledge about preventing inflation, it failed spectacularly. And you can see the cost for everyday people. Think about this. If you lived in London, the purchasing power of your money was cut in half. UK inflation shot up by 100%.
Wow. And in France?
Double that. In Paris, inflation went up by 200%.
And Germany must have been even worse.
That was the truly ruinous figure. Germany's system didn't just bend, it completely collapsed. Inflation there increased by 300, maybe 400%.
And here's where the sources point to something. A core betrayal, really. We tend to think of this as, external forces breaking a stable financial system.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened, is it?
That's the shocking part. The central bank, the very institution that everyone saw as the keeper of monetary discipline, it was the first one to break the rules.
Well, they weren't the guardrail.
They were the ones who dismantled it. They didn't just manage the existing money. They actively enabled the war's duration by, printing unlimited currency, debt monetization, basically, to meet the endless demands of the war machine.
So the key analysis here is that by breaking their own rules, the financial system itself actually propelled the war. It made the cost of failure too easy to absorb.
Precisely. When you can just print away the debt, you create what we call cheap money in the context of war. It removes that natural, painful financial barrier. And tragically, this meant the human cost of the conflict became easier to pay because the financiers never had to face the reckoning they'd predicted for themselves.
Okay, so this gets really interesting. If the monetary policy was designed to prevent this exact thing, we have to look deeper. What specific illusions, as the sources call them, blinded these powerful men? This wasn't just an economic error. It sounds profoundly psychological.
That's right. Our material points to three fundamental illusions, and they're rooted in basic human psychology. And, they're still incredibly relevant today.
Okay, let's start with illusion number one, the illusion of control.
This was pure arrogance, self-satisfaction. These leaders believed they had a complete grasp on how money worked, better than any generation before them. And this sense of superiority, it led to what the source calls blind decisions.
Because if you think you can't be wrong,
You stop asking what if, you stop stress testing your own assumptions, you think your model is perfect.
a really destructive kind of certainty. What was illusion number two?
Short-term bias. Everyone in power, and I mean everyone, truly believed the conflict would be over before Christmas.
That one phrase.
It was catastrophic because it caused them to drastically underestimate the long-term price. They were making financial decisions on a 4-month time frame for what turned out to be a 4-year war. It's like taking out a 30-year mortgage based on next month's budget.
And illusion number three is, for me, the most shocking detail from the source material: power blindness. We just assume the heads of these powerful central banks were, the best financial minds, top-tier economists.
Right. But the sources reveal that in many of these key European nations, these men were often aristocrats. They were chosen by lineage, by family connection, not by competence or financial expertise.
Wait, so the people who were supposed to be the arbiters of financial fate, they didn't actually have the technical skills to run the system in a crisis.
Precisely. They were chosen because of who they were, not what they knew. The source puts it very powerfully. When power is not enlightened by wisdom, it becomes a hazard to everyone. The system was broken from the top by people who didn't understand the real-world consequences of breaking their own rules.
And it all comes back to this idea that when printing money becomes too easy, when you create that cheap money, the cost of error also becomes too easy to bear.
Exactly. And if the cost of failure is too low, the conflict, whether it's military or financial, can just drag on indefinitely.
So let's pivot. What does all this mean for us today? Let's move from the trenches of 1914 to the conflicts we face, institutionally and personally.
Well, we can start by just applying those same illusions. Think about the illusion of control and modern sovereign debt. How many nations today believe their economy is so unique, their currency so privileged, that they can just run deficits forever without consequence?
It's the same arrogance, the belief that modern scientific knowledge means they can't fail.
It's the exact same hubris.
That's a powerful parallel. And what about for our own lives? Lesson one is about clinging to our personal illusions.
Right. If nations cling to the illusion of gold discipline, we often cling to our own rigid internal beliefs. It could be ego, old honor, some outdated idea about how a career or a relationship is supposed to work. And when we refuse to adapt, we create our own self-inflicted, unending conflicts. We pay the price in personal energy, just like they paid in national debt.
And lesson two about unlimited resources. Central banks started printing unlimited currency. We have our own forms of unlimited resources today, right? Unlimited information, unlimited distraction on screens, unlimited ambition without any boundaries.
Mm-hmm. And if those powerful internal resources, unlimited emotion, unlimited energy spent on the wrong things, aren't regulated by wisdom, they don't lead to success, they lead to burnout. Self-destruction, the illusion that more is always better, is just so dangerous without some kind of foresight.
You can spend yourself into bankruptcy, emotionally or financially.
Exactly.
And finally, lesson three, which might be the most valuable takeaway. Wisdom doesn't come from having the confident answer, that arrogance of illusion one. It comes from asking the one essential question they completely missed in 1914.
And that question is so simple, but it's revolutionary. What happens if we are wrong? Had they just questioned their core assumption that gold would force peace, history might have been fundamentally different. Wisdom is in the question, not the confident answer.
We should always challenge our greatest certainties.
At the end of the day, the central paradox is this. Money can absolutely buy a war, but it cannot buy wisdom. The people with the most financial power in 1914 were blinded by that perceived control, by the privilege that put them in their positions.
And as we close out this deep dive, we want to leave you with this really profound thought from the source material. We don't just live among the wars of the world, even though they consume the headlines. We live, primarily, among the conflicts within ourselves.
The internal wars. The ones fueled by our own unchecked illusions and unquestioned assumptions.
And only wisdom provides the path to step out of them. So we encourage you to reflect tonight on that one internal illusion, that thing you are most certain about, and just ask yourself, what happens if I am wrong?